this video, we're looking at how to use the distributive property with fractions, because sometimes you're going to need to use the distributive property to expand an expression, and you're going to have a fractional value out in front of your parentheses like this, or a fractional value inside of your parentheses somewhere like this a over y here. So we really want to make sure we know how to apply the distributive property when we're dealing with fractional values either inside and or outside of our parentheses. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. This first one here, we have x over y times the quantity a over y minus b. So just like with the distributive property before, we want to make sure that we multiply the value that's outside our parentheses by each of the values inside our parentheses. So we're going to look at x over y times a over y. And when we do that, what we're going to do is multiply our numerators together. So we have x times a, so let's go ahead and say x times a, and then our denominators together. So divided by y times y. So we can just say y times y, and we'll simplify this in a second. Now we're going to keep the negative sign, so we have our negative sign here, and we're going to multiply x over y times b. Well, remember that this b here is essentially b over 1, where b is in the numerator and 1 is our denominator. Putting b over 1 doesn't change the value of b. So we say b over 1, and now we do the same thing. We multiply our numerators together, so x times b, and then our denominators together, y times 1, so y times 1. And now you can simplify this. So x times a, we just say xa, and y times y, we say y squared. So we have xa over y squared. And then here, we're going to have x times b, which is just xb, and y times 1 is just y, so we get xb over y. Now, as you practice more and more of these problems, you'll likely be able to skip this second step here and go straight from your first step to this step here and do this in your head, xa over y squared minus xb over y, skipping the second step. But I wanted to show you what we were doing before we simplified to this final answer. So let's take a look at a second example here. We have ab over c squared out in front, and the first term that we're multiplying by is xab over c. So in this case, let's do it in our head. We have ab times xab in our numerator. Well, we've got two a's and we've got two b's, so we're going to need x a squared b squared. So x a squared b squared will be our numerator, and then in our denominator we have c squared times c, which is going to give us c cubed. Now for our second term here, again, just like we did with this b over 1, we're going to say that this is 2bx over 1. We haven't changed the value by putting 1 in the denominator, and now we multiply numerators with denominators. So we'll say plus, keeping our plus sign from here, 2bx times ab here. Well, we have 1a, we have 2b's, we have an x. So we have 2x a b squared because we have 2b's. And then for our denominator, we have c squared times 1, which of course is just c squared. And now for our final term, we have this negative sign, so we need to make sure we keep the negative. And in our numerator, we have a 4 and we have an ab here, so we're going to get 4ab when we multiply those together. In the denominator, we have a c squared and a c squared, and when we multiply those together, we get c to the 4th.